This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Karina Mangu-Ward on the show. She is the author of a book, Teams That Meet the Moment, and is a partner at August. They specialize in helping people and companies like me and us that will need help with organizational leadership, development, and things like that. Anyway, with all that being said, Karina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background, how you got into helping teams be better and working with agility and things like that.
Sure. I have a little bit of a quirky career path. I actually started my career in the arts. So I always been really interested in groups. I joke that I love human mess. And there's nothing that's messier than theater. So I was a theater kid. I'm like a recovered theater kid, I guess. And in college, I was really passionate about two things. One, theater, and the other, psychology. I studied at Harvard University under Mahzarin Banaji, and she had a psychology lab around implicit bias. And I got really interested in psychology. But at the same time, I spent most of my time in the theater because what I really love is the suspense of people coming together in a group and trying to make something that they don't exactly know how it's going to turn out, but they know they have to put all of their skills, all of their talent, all of their energy into it. Mm-hmm. And I started my career that way, and I started running arts organizations. But I got kind of obsessed with this question: why aren't organizations as creative behind the scenes as they are in the art that they make? Why does it feel like in the back office of a theater, we're grinding through the same troubles communicating and making decisions and getting things done as any other organization when we're working with artists who are just exceptionally creative? So I got kind of obsessed with that question. And then I met this person who had an arts consulting company, and he came in to try to help our organization. And I had an aha moment where I thought, I don't want to work inside organizations anymore. I want to work on organizations. I am obsessed with what makes teams work, what makes leaders work. And so I went to work for that organization, and I spent, I've spent the next 15 years coaching teams, facilitating teams, helping teams in their most ambitious moments figure out how to get things done. And I did eventually find my way to August. We're a boutique consultancy. And our work is all about helping. Our mission is a capable team for every meaningful mission, because we deeply believe that teams that work well together every day are the engine of creating value inside organizations. So we're just obsessed with that. And the book is called Teams That Meet the Moment, and it's coming out in May. So very excited about that.
Awesome. Yeah. So I love the fact that you have a creative background, because it's so interesting to me how creativity, one of my favorite books of all time, and this is a really big tangent, but is a book called The Accidental Creative. And it's by a guy named Todd Henry. And this is a book about how a lot of people take jobs in organizations and, business jobs, and don't realize that to be successful, you have to be creative. And they may have grown up their entire life saying, well, I'm not very creative, I can't draw, or whatever. But in reality, businesses are all about creating solutions to problems. And if you don't take that mindset of being a creative, how can you create solutions? And how can you actually evolve into that path? And he has got a whole series of books that there's some of them are related, some of them are not, but they're all about taking the creative side of leading people in problem solving and putting that together. And, when you say, you were a theater kid, but you majored in psychology, how did those two marry together, and how has that benefited you as you're trying to work on organizations?
It's a great question. I mean, psychology is it was for me about the study of why are people the way they are? Why do they show up Why do they engage in conflict the way they engage in how do they build relationships in ways that are meaningful? And what's the science of that? And there was actually a
Mhm.
moment where I thought I was going to go and get a psychology PhD. And then I realized I couldn't work on one problem. Like I couldn't work on one small problem for a long time. And what I loved about theater and group work is that it's all of those things at once, right? In order to make something really creative, you have to generate ideas, listen to other people, understand where they're coming from, say no to things, make decisions, rehearse, perform. To me, that's still how I think about teamwork inside organizations. Like we're always doing all of those things, whether we're launching a new product or doing a change initiative or managing a team member. It's all those same things all mixed up together. So and I think the more we understand how humans operate at their best in complex situations, which is what we're often facing inside organizations, I think the better leaders we can be, the better team members we can be, and the more we can get done. And one of my like I will this is a sword I will die on, which is that when teamwork is done well, it's good for people and good for outcomes. And I think we often feel like we have to trade off those things. Either I'm like grinding hard and getting work done, or I'm being really great to my people. But when teamwork is operating well, we can do both of those things. I'm curious, does that match with your
Yeah.
experience in any
Yeah,
way?
100%. And I think when you're talking about the theater and working together, one of the correlations that I see with teams is one of the things that's worst, the worst thing that I've ever seen at a show or something like that is when someone has ego, right? And that ego takes over and they're trying to be the star of the show instead of being a supporter. And the same thing happens in teamwork. If you have that one person on the team that wants to outshine the team itself, then that's going to bring everybody down. But what makes a product successful or a business successful or a group successful or a show successful is when everybody's working together, understanding their role and trying to put on the best show or the best outcome or the best product possible and putting their ego aside. And when that happens, it raises everybody up to the same level. And I think that's kind of a good correlation that I see there. And and yes, I see exactly what you're saying. If the team works well together, then everything moves up. And one example that I had before we started talking about, before we started recording, we talked a little bit about, boundaries for leaders and things like that. And one of the boundaries that I set when I was a new boss, I was getting burned out because I was working way too many hours, is I said, hey, I'm going to leave work at a certain time and I'm not going to check my phone. I'm not going to do anything. And I'm not going to require my team to do that either. We're going to make sure our stuff's done. But then after my kids go to bed, then I'll check in and I'll see if there's an emergency and we'll take care of it. And my boss was really hesitant about allowing us to do that. I said, let's just do it. Well, that made my team happier, in general, and made their life like, okay, now I have some structure. Now I'm not just going to work until, the wee hours of the morning or whatever. I'm going to leave work and I'm going to have a life. And it turns out that they were so much more productive until, because they knew I have a hard stop now. And because, my boss is kicking us out at 5 or 5:30, we got to go home. So we have this hard stop and they got work done and a lot more work done. And then they were more satisfied. And it's kind of that thing where you're kind of fearful of making this change, but in the outcome, by making people happier, they got more done.
I think that's right. And it's two things in the book that really resonates with. So the book starts with these three lies about performance, these things that we mistake as the critical levers. One of them is we just need a better strategy to win, right? We like obsess over
Yes.
strategy depth. And those things sit on the shelf and they gather dust and they rot. But if you don't have a team that's working to execute, you don't get the results of that. But the second one is superstar talent leads to superstar teamwork. That's a lie, right? Like we know this in the theater that the diva always gets in the way of the great performance, right? Because other people can't play their roles. I think this happens a lot, though. We obsess over hiring the best, best, best folks in the field and we pay them big compensation packages. That's
Mhm.
okay. Talent is really important, but without you can't throw a group of superstars together and assume that they will produce superstar results without proper structure, clarity around roles, explicit working agreements. And so everything you said around just something we say a lot at August is you have to make the implicit explicit. You have to make it known how the team is working together. And one of the book is structured around these 9 what we call our blockbuster practices at August. These are practices we've been teaching teams around the world for a decade. And one of the ones that gets referenced the most is called the team charter. And it's a document where a team writes down what is its core purpose? What is it sprinting against for the next 90 days? And what's everybody's role in the team, which might not be the same as their job description, right? Because in teams, we're often coming together across lines. And my role in this project might be research lead, even though that's not my job. But I also might be taking notes for the meetings, which isn't my job. So we have to get clear on our roles. We also have to get clear on who decides. In the theater, we know that the choreographer decides what steps we take and the director decides the intent behind a scene. But in teamwork, it's often hard to know who's making what call, about
Right.
what. Does the power sit with the team or with the boss? And the work up front to get explicit around that as much as you can is so empowering for teams, especially when they're doing something hard and ambitious. And the last part of a good team charter is working agreements. Things like our day is done at 5, or we don't communicate via email, we only communicate via Slack. Especially for new team members, especially for new leaders, charters can be such a powerful tool for helping a team go from functioning okay to like moving at speed with agility. So, and we've got some good resources on our website about that tool if you haven't. Is chartering a part of your practice as you've worked in and led teams, John?
Yes, yes, it is. So what we call, I call them my code, our team code, and and we have like, and we present it every quarter. We go through it, we talk about it, and we make adjustments. And everybody's available to speak into it. It doesn't matter if you're the newest intern. You can say, hey, offer a suggestion to the team code, and we can make agreements upon there. And they've evolved over years, but they're very simple things like. We won't create we won't create waves, we'll ride them. So, we won't gossip about people. We won't talk about things like that. And there are things about communication. We have, very explicit things like if someone sends you a Slack message, you reply on Slack and don't reply via email, unless they've asked you to, because there's some people that get very frustrated with, differences of communication. If someone, sends you an email, they don't want you to call them. They want you to reply to the email. That's why they sent the email. So we have things like that within them. Yeah, I think they're very important.
It sounds really simple, but it reduces so much churn and so much friction when we know how we work best together. And I think, in the book, we have 3 practices that are related to that. One is the charter, and the other is meeting with purpose. So just knowing every time we meet, why are we there? Do we have shared language around, are we prioritizing today? Or are we collaborating today? Or are we making a decision today? Or are we learning today? And having folks have kind of sticky shared language around
Mhm.
what we're doing together. Because I think what I observe inside many, many organizations that I'm working with, facilitating or coaching, is that the the teams are often drowning in sort of the everyday friction of organizational life. That question of like, how do we get this done, or who decides, or even perfectionism, right? Like, I don't want to get anything wrong, so I'm going to wait to ship it until it's perfect. And in a world that never sits still, in a world that is moving so fast, I really think that as teams and leaders of teams, like, we can't allow that everyday friction to stop us from doing just tremendous, tremendous work. And that's what I mean, that's what I'm obsessed with. That's what the book is really all about.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think, and one of the things my mentor told me, 20 years ago, that was so important to me, and it's been impactful for me all the time, is that good enough is good enough for a reason. The fact that someone says it's good enough, then you need to ship it. Good enough is good enough for a reason. You don't have to be perfect. And one thing that you talk about that's also, I think, really important that I want to hit on a little bit is the idea of being safe to try things. And
Yeah.
you talk about how high performing teams have this safety where they can try things and not have to be fearful about it. Because fear is one of the things that I see that brings teams down, probably more than anything other than ego. And can you talk a little bit about how do you implement something like that, and how do you develop a culture of safety?
Totally. Yeah, this is one of my favorite kind of August practices. So I think in a lot of organizations and a lot of teams, we default to consensus, which I think of as getting everybody to a yes. You want
Mm.
all 100% yeses. But that looks good on the surface. Like, of course we want 100% yeses. Of course we want everybody feeling good. It's rarely realistic though, and
Mhm.
often we end up pushing for consensus from a place of fear, right? Not wanting somebody later to be like, "Well, I never thought that was a good idea," or not wanting to exclude any voice of any kind. And so consensus, while it seems good on the surface, can become more of a protector that protects our perfectionism. So what we talk about at August is the language of getting to safe to try, not consensus. It doesn't have to be 100% yes. It's actually about getting to know no's. Because if there's someone in the room who's going, I object, no, 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 we want to pay attention to that. But
Mhm.
there's a difference between that and someone going, I wouldn't prefer this. I wouldn't choose this if it was me, but I don't have any data that it's going to do us harm. I don't have any data that it's going to move us backwards. It is safe enough to try. And what we mean by that is literally try. It doesn't mean safe enough to execute for the rest of time while never considering it again. It means
Yes.
let's try it for the next 4 weeks or 8 weeks, knowing that we will pause, reflect, and if we need to, pivot. And safe to try is all about a culture of adaptivity, a culture of learning, and making it safe, not just to try, but safe to fail. So
Mm.
anything we do that's safe to try, we should say, if we fail completely and utterly at this, it's likely we'll be able to reverse it or repair that harm. And that's okay. There's a story in the book about a team that's deciding to stop a process. So it's a process that's been going for a long time. It eats literally hundreds of hours of people's time every month. And someone goes, I think we should stop doing that. And that would be the kind of thing that a typical team would debate over for like 3 days or 3 weeks. Well, can we stop it? And what would those people do with that time now? We need to figure it all out. And luckily, that group knew that the threshold was safe to try. And they looked around at each other and they said, this feels directionally right. Are there any no's, any objections? And there were no objections. And so they did it. And you know what? They eliminated that process once and it worked and it was transformative. Everybody got that time back, but they wouldn't have even tried it if they had got stuck in trying to like perfectly solve for all the possible outcomes of what might have happened. And I think so. One of the skills of a safe to try culture is about chunking work down, right? So
Mm.
you want to think of something that is genuinely safe to try. It's probably not a 3-year project. It's probably the first move. Okay, we want to learn more about our stakeholders. What's safe to try? Let's have 3 conversations. Safe to try? Yeah, okay, let's go ahead. So a culture of safe to try involves like chunking work down. It involves also having cycles of reflection that are built in before anything goes too far off the rails. And it's certainly a process. At August, we teach safe to try as a formal process where someone brings a proposal, everyone can ask clarifying questions and react, and then the proposal can get amended. And there's a formal moment where anyone at any rank can object and say, I have data that says this isn't safe to try, because we want to make it okay to put your hand up and say, this is gonna be wrong. That's a big part of a safe to try culture. But it's really about getting to safe next action. And so it's a practice, but it's also just a mindset. And I know leaders who are really effective at having a bias for action know, instead of asking, is this right? They ask it instead, is this safe to try? And that frame shift for their team is so empowering.
Yeah, I wish I would have known that about a decade ago because I worked with somebody. He was a peer, and he had just he was paralyzed by making decisions, unless they were perfect. And you can think back to like one of the simplest things, and can you make this decision? And he kept going like, well, what if this happens? What if they don't like it? What if this? I'm like, it's reversible. My goal is just I always kept saying it's just reversible. Just undo it. And he's like,
Yeah.
oh, but then people will think that I'm a bad leader because I flip flopped, and I'm like, no, they will think you're human. They'll think you're honest.
Yeah.
Uh,
The other connection I would make is that
mm,
you know, 10 or 20 years ago, the world moved more slowly. And there were more things that maybe we could be right about if
mhm.
we really thought hard about it. But these days, the world moves so fast. I think about
Yes.
AI, right? People really want to get AI right, but the tools are more stupid now than they ever will be, and they're changing every 2 weeks. So it's really hard to be right about anything. And we talk at August about like one-way doors and two-way doors. This is kind of like an Amazon thing, right? And being able to discern what's truly a one-way door where you can't walk back through it, that is a much narrower set of decisions than leaders
Mhm.
tend to think. It's a very, very small set. Most decisions are two-way doors where you can walk right back through that door if you need to and try again. And in an era that is marked by extreme uncertainty and extreme volatility, the good leadership is not about the amount that you get it right. It's about how the amount of pivots that you take to get to the outcome that you're actually striving for. And that requires a very different way of working these days, but most leaders are not raised up that way. And I would argue, maybe this is a stereotype, but I would argue technical leaders who like are so good at their craft might have even a more challenging time with that because they like are such SMEs and they want to be so knowledgeable, but being able to say, I'm probably not, probably a little bit wrong on this, and we'll find out is vulnerable. You
Very.
know, that's challenging. I wonder, does that resonate with your experience, like kind of come
Yes.
up on a technical side of things?
Yeah, and it's still one of the hard things that I deal with, like as a leader myself, is being able to say, I don't know. Like I never want to say I don't know. I want to say like I do know, and I want to be confident in that. But in reality, a lot of times I don't know. And what I'm starting to learn now is, now I'm in my, upper 40s. I'm starting to see that things that I thought I knew, I don't know anymore. And, I misremembered. My memory is not as good as it was before. And like what you said with AI, I just had a conversation actually just, within the last few days with someone. We were talking about training models on AI. This person said, well, it's going to take so much effort to get all of our data into this model. And there's going to be a new model in like 2 weeks. So why even do it? Why don't we just wait for the new model? It's like, because there's always going to be a new model. Like you can't always, either you'll never do it or you'll do it now. Like there's no like,
Yeah. You there's you're never going to get it right and get to sit in that rightness for very long. And I feel like I'm out in the world right now being like, I'm sorry, this is the way that it is. It's so hard as a human. We want to be certain. We want to get things done right. But if this is the world that we're living in, especially with I think it's really on us as team leaders and as team members to make sure we've got the right skills, the right mindset, and the right language to operate in that world.
yeah.
One of the other things that comes to mind is there's this other practice that is like one of August's core practices. And in the book, it's called even overs. It's about making difficult trade-offs. And I think that this is one of the most anguishing, difficult skills of any team leader because we're often faced with two things that we want. We want ice cream and we want cake, but we've only got $5, right? We have to pick the what. If are you for you ice cream even over cake or cake even over ice cream?
Cake over ice cream for sure. Oh,
All
no,
right.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I said that backwards. Ice cream over cake. Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too. Me too. I'm
Yeah.
always gonna choose ice cream at
But
the
if you can mix them together where you get the soggy cake because of the ice cream and it's cold, that's really good too.
No, no, no. You're doing the things that you're doing what leaders do. You're doing it. You can't do it. Leaders are like, but can we just mix together
What
both?
about ice cream cake?
Fine. I mean, fine. There's a loophole on the cake, but my point is that in most of organizational life, we are facing trade-offs. Do I want accuracy or speed? Right? It's like those are two
Right. Yeah,
really
those are good.
good things. The sign of a good even over is good thing A even over good thing B. It's not good thing A even over crappy thing B. That's not a hard trade-off. It's when there's two things that we really want. And what happens often in teams is that I as a team leader might be clear on what those trade-offs are. Like I'm operating fluidly, but my team are like, oh no, I'm facing a decision today and I have to make a trade-off between growth and margin or between inclusion and speed. I don't know how to make that trade-off. And I end up escalating to my team lead, right? And I'm like, how should I make this choice, right? The even over is a powerful practice because it allows us to pre-align on the trade-offs that we're going to make as a team. So if I say to my team as a leader, folks, it's always going to be speed at the expense, even over accuracy. You don't need to come to me every time you're facing that choice because you know that we know what's important and we've stated it. And that kind of, it's setting guardrails, right? Rather than plans. And when we're dealing with fast moving, complex things, guardrails help us a lot more than saying we're going to do A, B, and C. Because as soon as you get to A, B, and C and you get blocked, you have to go to your leader and say, what do I do next? But if you know what your guardrails are, you can operate with speed and confidence and feeling empowered and clear, even when you're making difficult trade-offs. I'm curious, are there trade-offs in particular that resonate like as a technical leader in your career where you're constantly wrestling between the two things that you want?
Yeah. So speed and accuracy, like what you said there, that resonates a lot because you want to get code out there fast. You want to get it done fast, but you also want to get it bug free. You hate to put bugs out in production, but there's always going to be bugs. They're always going to be there. So you have to figure out like what's an acceptable amount of bugs. When you were saying that, I kept thinking of, back a long time ago when Facebook was really first starting to blow up, Mark Zuckerberg said, move fast and break things. And that was a, catchphrase that everybody, caught on to. But what he was saying there is like, it's more important to go fast than to have good quality. And we're okay with that. And that's our guidelines. That's our bumpers for bowling, that the ball's going to bounce around. We don't know where it's going to go, but we're going to get more pins that way. And
Yeah.
although I don't always agree with, breaking things, I put a caveat between our speed. I said, you can move fast as long as it's reversible. Everything you do is reversible. That's kind of one of our core values, is that everything has to be reversible. So if you wanted to do something new, great. Tell me how I can undo it. Yeah. Perfect. Try it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm not a big proponent of the move fast and break things. Like there's something very, I don't know, big tech and like masculine energy about that. That's not my vibe. I'm more in the Francis Wright and Morris. I don't know if you've read their work that's around like move fast and fix things rather
Yeah.
than move fast and break things. But the idea that you're being move fast, but then move with trust. And if something breaks, fix it with an iterative mindset. Don't be like, whatever. Move fast. We don't let the fact that we might have to fix something later keep us from moving, because at the end of the day, it's the moving that helps us create value for users and test things in real in real context rather than imagining what they could be like. And if you want to meet the moment, which is what I'm obsessed with, is it's always better to figure out how to act in a safe enough way than to just keep thinking about what you might do. And that's the thing that hurts my heart the most when I see teams sort of in the meeting swirl, indecision swirl, analysis paralysis, trade-off denial. These keep us from achieving our ambitions. And I want that for people at work. And I think the unfortunate, I'm a work optimist, but the reality that I see inside many organizations is that work kind of sucks for a lot of folks right now. It's hard. It feels bad. People are burnt out.
Mhm.
And I really do believe that when we triage and when leaders in particular get good at these nuanced pieces of how to get teams unblocked and unlocked, it really is a better day at work for most people. And that's much more in people's realm than whether the strategy is exactly right or whether the person sitting next to them is like the most talented in the field. We can work through all of that if the way we're working every day is not making it harder for us to
Yes.
get done the stuff we want to get done.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree with you 100%. And one of the things that, I was kind of remembering before we talk about strategy, there's some people that I feel like they have to have a solid strategy before everything. Like you mentioned, better strategy is one of those lies for performance. And I was having a conversation with someone. He's like, we really got to get this AI strategy like nailed down. I said, no, you don't. He's like, well, all the other companies that are successful have good strategies. I said, no, they don't. Nobody has a good strategy right now because we don't know what it's going to be. We're just trying. Like all you got to do is try, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's I'm spending a lot of time thinking about AI and teamwork right now. And I've been thinking a lot about the hidden barriers to success in AI. And I think the good strategy trap is kind of the most insidious of it. We just have to get our AI strategy right. I think stop focusing on that and start focusing on building a culture of adaptivity, a
Yes.
culture that's comfortable with fail, a culture where teams can try stuff and then quickly figure out whether it's working or not, whether it's generating value or not, and are comfortable not pursuing a strategy that's clearly not right. Just because it's more important to have a clear strategy that our competitors think, oh, we've nailed it and you've nailed it, right? It's like strategy competition.
Yeah.
No, the work on the ground should be good. The AI tools should be delivering value that folks are enjoying in their everyday work, more so than having a beautiful, crisp 2-slide strategy that everybody is aligned on. Because in 6 months, it's all going to be wrong. It just
Yep.
is. And we have to have a culture that says, what's next? Let's pivot. Let's learn. Let's try the next safe to try thing and just keep at it. And I understand it's exhausting. It's completely exhausting. We're in an era of absolute change fatigue right now. But I think the more we fight the reality that things are going to keep changing, the more exhausting it is. And the more we accept that that is that AI is going to be different next week, and that probably my team is going to be different next week, and the org design is going to be different next week. Everything is changing, and we have to kind of flow with that, I think.
Yeah, I think for me it was because I was trying to figure out like the strategy, trying to go in like how are we going to use this tool, how are we going to do that, and then it's been a couple months ago now when Clawbot came out. It used to be called something else before Clawbot, but it was like an agentic tool that you could install it, and it changed kind of the way like AI can be used. And I'm like, oh, now there's something different. And at that
You
point,
mean
it's
Cowork? Cloud
not
Cowork?
Cowork. No, it's not owned by Claude. It's actually called Clawbot,
Oh,
CLAW,
Clawbot. Got it.
and it was purchased by OpenAI. And before that, it was something else, Molten Bot or something like that. But anyway, back then it was when it first kind of hit the social media news. This was in GitHub, it's open source, you can try it out. And I tried it, and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to change everything, all the things we've been planning, and I got so stressed out. I'm like, why am I even like fighting this? Let's just ride the wave. It's almost like swimming up a stream. Let's just ride this. Let's just get in the raft, open up a beer, and just relax and kind of see where this takes me. Let's not swim upstream anymore. Let's just
Yeah.
ride it out.
I love that. That's one of the grounding metaphors for my whole life. I did a leadership program, it was called Coro. I did it almost a decade ago now. It's for like multi-stakeholder leadership groups in cities. I
Mhm.
did it in New York. And the big aha I had was you can't push the river.
Yes.
You can't actually, like, the river is going to flow. And I realized that the times in my career that I've been the least effective is when I'm paddling so hard in the river, I'm exhausting myself, or when I think it's my job to carve some kind of a new channel,
Mhm.
which is literally impossible to do as a team of one. And the thing we can most do is ride it and sort of stay afloat and stay alert and relax. And that's very counterintuitive to my personal style. And I think to many leaders, they want to frantically swim and be in control. And so much of it you can't. The thing you can do as a leader, and one of the other practices in the book that's in our section about designing for learning, it's called
Mhm.
work in public. And I think one of the
Yes.
most powerful things you can do is not flail in private and not try and experiment in private, but to role model, here's what I'm trying, here's what I'm learning. I permission to be messy, permission to share my work that's half done. And I think whether it's an AI world or just a world in general where everything is changing, that really requires letting go of perfectionism, being open to vulnerability, and not needing to do grand reveals. I don't have to pull a rabbit out of a hat. I can show you a requirements document that's a quarter of the way done because I know that if I get your input now, we're going to save time later. I'm going to show
Yes.
you my first experiment in Claude Cowork because I'm trying, but I can't get past step 3 of connecting all my applications. Have you figured this out? And creating, whether it's as simple as a Slack channel or whether it's simple as like a team forum moment where people can share in public vulnerably the things that they're trying and they're learning and their product that isn't finished yet. As a leader modeling that and as a leader holding that space, I think that's one of the most powerful things that you can do, because when people work in private, they get stuck and they don't get the help and the feedback early on that they need. I'm curious, how does that resonate with your work practice? Like, have you had leaders themselves who have worked in public? Do you try to do that? Was there a point when you realized you needed to do that as a leader?
Yeah, so I love this. I can think back probably 10 years or more than that, probably 12 years ago. I was at a conference in Tennessee, and the guy gave a talk called Code in Public. And what he did is he literally coded on a screen while talking about it and talking about the value of having, he would ask questions like, hey, I'm writing this, what should I do? And somebody would tell him something. He's like, see the value of having someone look at your code while you're doing it. And my team, we were just in the process of moving from waterfall to Scrum. And that was kind of a new thing in our company. And our team was kind of the first team doing it. And there was hesitancies of allowing our end users to sit in on our stand-ups and stuff like that. And I came back from this conference. I'm like, they're all invited. Everybody's invited. And we're all going to like, just let's have them all in here. Let's show them everything we're doing. Let's show them things that we don't know how to do. And there were times where we thought this, they had what they thought was a simple requirement or simple user story, and our team was struggling with it. And they're like, oh, well, don't do it then. It's not that valuable. Like it's not worth that. We didn't realize that was hard. We thought that was an easy thing. And then it's like, oh, so now that we're learning this and we're saying, well, this thing that was, we thought you thought was easy, we think are hard. You say don't do it because it's not valuable, and it saves us a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we can focus on the things that are valuable. So yeah, I love that. I think that resonates a lot.
I love that story. It's such a good example. And I also love the boldness of you to come back from that conference and be like, we're doing it, and just make that change, right? That's one of the things that leaders can do most powerfully is hear about some kind of a new way of working and then just say, this is safe enough to try. Let's invite everybody and see what happens. And in 4 weeks, if it's too many people, we'll uninvite some people. And it's the definition of a two-way door, right?
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of people didn't come, which was fine. It's fine. It was great that they didn't come, honestly, because it probably would have been too many. But at the time, I may have been a little reckless with some of the things that I was trying, but overall, everything pretty much worked out, or most things worked out. Like I came back also that weekend and took down all the cube walls because I wanted our team to be more collaborative. So I just got rid of them all. My boss didn't like that too much, but because yeah, we had a bunch of software teams, and my team was the only one without cube walls because I just took them all down. Yeah, but
I love
it was
that.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot about how, I don't know where we get these expectations, but the idea that your team should feel like we got a problem the user cares about, and we have to work on it, even though it feels really hard because we want to be good. We want to deliver results. We want it. And to connect the feedback loop sooner, how satisfying that is for users and how much time that saves us as makers. So it requires vulnerability, it requires openness, and it feels like more work, I think, to work in public. I know I experience that sometimes with my own team. We have an extreme work in public dynamic at August. We're a small team, we're a boutique firm. There's 10 of us, and we do almost everything in public. And sometimes it can feel like information overload, fire hose, right? But one of the skills of a team that's working in public is you decide what you want to engage with or not. So I think it's powerful that someone was like, I'm not going to go to that, or I am going to go to that because I care. It requires a lot less, it requires a lot more discernment about how you want to jump in and how you want to engage than if you're in a kind of more of like a need to know culture where you're fed exactly what you need to know, and then you have to pay all kinds of attention to it. And I think at worst, a work in public culture becomes information rich, but like context poor. So working in public also requires making sure we're giving good context and asking people to jump in the right ways. But when done well, it's so powerful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see, um, when you're not working in public, you feel like you're almost inauthentic with the way that the information is shared and sometimes presented. And also, like you said, if you don't want to be a part of that, you don't have to. You can choose not to. But in a not working public environment, you almost have to. So you kind of have to almost act like you like it, whether you do or not, or act like you care whether you do or
Yeah.
not. So it's a little less authentic, for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the skills of a work in public environment is also we can be taught professionally that our job is to like, tear things down, right? You see a good deliverable and you think it's your job to like poke holes or find out the errors. But when you're working in public, your job is to build up, to say, here's something you haven't considered, or here's my wisdom, or stop doing this. It's much more, I think, collaborative and much less competitive when we're sharing our work freely and openly and with vulnerability.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, so when does the book come out? Where can we get it? How can we learn more? And how can we connect with you online if we have more questions or we're interested in maybe working with August in the future?
Sure. The book comes out May 6th, available anywhere you buy books online. It's called Teams That Meet the Moment, and it's organized around these three parts: organizing for impact, deciding in uncertainty, and designing for learning. 9 blockbuster practices that are super concrete, easy to use immediately, whether you're a team leader or a team member. You don't have to be a leader, just to be really clear. Any team member can use any of these practices. And we are going to be doing a lot on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of my time. So you can find me, Karina Mangu-Ward, just my name, on LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about the book or engage us for speaking, you can email book@aug.co. That's book@aug.co. And you can find us online at aug.co as well, aug.co. We are going to be organizing some book salons. So if you have any interest in bringing me or one of the amazing other partners at August in to come and lead a session on what exceptional teaming that meets the moment looks like inside your organization, feel free to reach out, and we will be doing those conversations in May and June and over the summer. And we'd love to connect with folks.
Awesome. I will link that in the show notes too at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through. Karina, again, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was very insightful and helpful for sure.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be here. Thanks, John.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to. Click on their links and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.